Hello everybody, and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today we're discussing one of the favorite hidden gems of Colorado, Monarch Mountain. Monarch is not on any of the 4 major passes, and as such is one of the best ski areas to escape those big mountain crowds you always hear complaining about. We'll get into the nuances of it all in a bit, but for now, let's begin an Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, edition Monarch. Now, some of you longtime viewers may recognize that this is a remake in order to expand the original discussion. If for some reason you're looking for the original, it can be found on the Archives playlist accessible from the channel page or the website. That out of the way, let's jump right in with some background. Located in central Colorado, Monarch is a bit out of the way from Denver, but is still reasonably day trippable when I-70 traffic is factored in, as there is rarely traffic on the route to Monarch. There is no on-site lodging, but there are plenty of options in the nearby towns of Poncha Springs and Salida, which are around a half hour from the mountain, and Gunnison, which is about 45 minutes away. Contrary to most others in Colorado, Monarch does not make any snow. This means that cover can be thin on the most popular routes, but also that the snow quality does not get icy nearly as quickly. If you didn't know this fact, you likely wouldn't notice it, so it's not a factor that should make or break a visit. Monarch only has one base area, so it's nice and easy to find your way around. Just ski down and you'll eventually make it back to where you started. At this base area, you'll find all of your normal amenities with a few options that serve breakfast. The food at Monarch is generally much less expensive than the industry norm, so I prefer to get to Monarch nice and early and eat before getting on the hill. As mentioned in the intro, Monarch very rarely sees crowds. On the rare occasions that it is busy and the on-site parking fills up, there is additional parking at the summit of Monarch Pass with shuttle bus service to the ski area. The Paradise lot at the ski area is perched high above the main base area, so they also run shuttle buses to it. On the mountain, lift lines rarely exceed a few minutes, with Panorama typically having the longest wait and Pioneer having the shortest. Pioneer does get busier around midday because it is situated right next to the cafeteria, but this can be easily circumvented, as we'll discuss in a minute. By and large, Monarch still offers the relaxed, friendly atmosphere that can be hard to come by at other, more commercialized ski resorts. It's a great hill to learn at, offering reasonably priced lessons for a half day. Despite its compact footprint, Monarch has solid terrain variety, offering something for pretty much everyone. If you're in Colorado looking to explore a new ski area for the day, Monarch should definitely be on your radar. Lift tickets themselves are fairly reasonable, although do beware that you can save a significant amount of time by purchasing online ahead of time. Rentals are quite cheap as well, but if you want to avoid the time it takes on mountain, there are a handful of outfitters in Salida where you can get your gear ahead of time. If you don't want to downhill ski, just down the pass is Monarch Snowmobile Tours, which I've done several times and always had a blast, and the mountain also offers snow tubing. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's dive into everything the trail map does and doesn't show. Now, as mentioned in the background, Monarch doesn't struggle much with lift lines. However, one of the biggest issues I take with Monarch is its layout. There are dozens of quirks that you could never tell solely from the trail map. To start, let's take a look at the base area. Monarch's base area slopes uphill from lookers left to right, meaning that Garfield is at a much lower elevation than Breezeway. As such, the tubing hill is a bit of a walk up the hill here from the main buildings, so you'll want to build in a few minutes for that. When you first approach from the parking lots or shuttles, you'll likely come up between these two buildings. From here, you'll be able to easily access Tumbelina and Pioneer and can ski down to Garfield. Breezeway, however, will take a bit of a walk up the hill. Most dining services are in the far left side of the main lodge here, making it difficult to get to Tumbelina or anything to the right when you leave the building. This is why Pioneer gets busy around lunchtime, but rarely any time else. One of the nice things about this tandem of Pioneer and Garfield, however, is that they mostly serve the same terrain. Thus, you can ski to the entrance to the Pioneer line and take a look at Garfield's, enabling you to enter whichever line is shorter. We'll come back to these two in just a minute, but first, let's discuss the Bunny Hill. Caterpillar is a magic carpet that's covered, meaning that it's sheltered on snowy days. However, this cover also makes it extremely warm on sunny days, so be sure to dress in layers. Butterfly is typically open only to ski school, while Snowflake is the learning hill for the general public. Once you're comfortable on Snowflake, you can head to Tumbelina, off which the easiest run is Little Joe. Rookie to Glade is actually a touch less steep, but is significantly busier. Additionally, this wide stretch by Panorama is quite flat. Beeline is actually quite steep, and as such is not a good first blue. For more advanced skiers, there is a fun little path through the trees off Little Joe here. Additionally, Tumbelina is the most direct way both to access the Panorama chair and to lap the Tilt Terrain Park, which has a few small jumps and boxes. Now, let's slide back over and talk about Garfield and Pioneer. Off the top of these two lifts, there are two major terrain sections. We'll first discuss the area I call Gun Barrel Ridge. This area comprises a handful of excellent cruisers from Toddler down to North 40. Tella Alley takes a bit of sidestepping to get to, but is a great place for some easier off-piste. Gun Barrel takes a short hike and is a steep mogul run. It's a solid workout, but one of my favorites at Monarch. It can take you directly to the parking lot, or if you want to return to Garfield, you might have to sidestep a bit. The trees in between Gun Barrel and Tella Alley also make for some excellent turns. When coming down Lower Tango, you have the option to keep skiers left onto a flat road that takes you back to Pioneer and the base lodge. Otherwise, you'll end up at Garfield, with an annoying walk required to get back up to the base area. To get to Gun Barrel Ridge's terrain, you can take Roundabout, which is a long winding road with some flat spots, or Romp or Upper Tango, each of which are short groomers that get icy quickly. Do note that Middle Tango here is not groomed, but the upper groomed section can easily drop you onto Romp. Romp does get a bit flat past Toddler here, so keep up some speed for that. Kirakanti is of note in this area too. Accessible off of the Panorama or Pioneer lifts via a flat traverse, this area is much more expansive than it appears on the map. It's got a nice variety of open areas and tree skiing, and the further back you go, the less skied out it'll be. If you head straight ahead off of Garfield or to the right off of Pioneer, you'll head down Sleepy Hollow, which is the easiest main mountain green at Monarch. This is a great next step after you're comfortable on Tumbelina. On the skier's left, you have the option to head down Pinball, which is a super fun natural gully that kids tend to love. Do beware that this area can get busy, so keep your head on a swivel. Serendipity, despite its green rating, is ungroomed, but it's exceptionally mellow and short. Back up over here, directly under the lifts are a collection of open faces and cut mogul runs. To access any of this, you'll need to take the Garfield lift, and for Lobo through Christmas Tree, there's a narrow sidestep path right next to the top of the lift that you'll need to take. There are lots of good cliffs and features throughout this whole area, and the woods around Berries here are excellent. However, be cautious in the woods around Christmas Tree, as this area is exceptionally rocky. Berries itself is groomed, offering a nice easy runout if you burn them on these upper blacks. The final out-of-base lift is the Breezeway chair, which isn't as complex as the other areas. Ramble On and Little Mo are a pair of excellent long blue cruisers, while Hall's Alley and Bee's Bash offer some nice mogul turns. Off the bottom of Ramble On is a small access track to the Paradise lot. If you're an intermediate or above and want to avoid the shuttle lines at the end of the day, consider taking this trail to return to your vehicle. Outback through docks all face south, so they struggle with snow cover in the early season. However, later in the season, their snow softens up earlier than many other places at the mountain. To get to Shagnasty and Outback, you need to take a flat road for a little ways. Shagnasty is groomed, but serves as the primary exit for Name Basin, so it gets quite busy. Couple that with the southern aspect, and I try to avoid it as much as possible. Outback is a fun bowl area that you can traverse, skate, or sidestep to from Shagnasty. Running down the middle is a narrow natural halfpipe, which is quite fun and much less busy than Pinball. I typically use Outback to exit No Name in order to avoid Shagnasty. Also off of the Breezeway chair, you have the option of taking a steep, 15-minute hike up to Mirkwood. Mirkwood is home to most of the mountain's expert terrain, with many chutes and cliffs sprinkled throughout for you to explore. Orcs and Mirkwood Bowl are the easiest ways down, and I don't find them to be worth the hike. My personal favorite place is Elation Ridge, which is home to a handful of chutes. It does require a short additional hike, but is the least tracked area in Mirkwood. The East Trees area is another great spot, offering long, steep glades to get into a rhythm. The Mirkwood return is groomed, but contrary to the trail map, does not require hiking, instead just a bit of skating or sidestepping in places. It is quite a long run out, so in combination with the hike to access, a Mirkwood lap is quite time consuming. Back over in the center of this front side is the Panorama lift. It serves the best mogul and tree runs at Monarch, along with offering some of the best views. As such, it is a quite popular lift, although there is enough terrain off the ridge that nothing ever feels too crowded. Skywalker has a couple of flat spots, so I would recommend only using it to access other trails. Or for beginners, take it only once so that you can see the views. Quick Draw and Turbo are ungroomed, with the latter offering the best intermediate mogul skiing on the mountain. However, for the best mogul skiing overall, I recommend Mirage or JR's. High Anxiety has some solid moguls, but also is a pretty rocky area. Sheer Rocco is just the lift line, but has a solid cliff band descend lower down. The trees on both sides of Sheer Rocco are some of my favorite glade skiing at Monarch. Over between Zipper and Dire Straits are a collection of 3 chutes. These comprise the best expert terrain outside of Mirkwood. If you want to read up on these a bit more, along with some other hidden glades and cliffs, I've linked a good resource in the description. Tikaboo, Picanti, and Snowburn are all excellent groomers, accessed via Great Divide. Great Divide is groomed on both sides of the snow fences, so you're not limited to just the skier's left side like it may initially appear. Accessible from the Panorama or Breezeway lifts is Monarch's newest terrain, the Name Basin on the backside of the mountain. From left to right, these 3 gates correspond to Mule Train, Prospector, and Wapiti, which you can see on the Name Basin map here. Now, despite the appearance on the map, Name Basin presents an entirely different experience than the rest of Monarch. For one, the blues here are generally much steeper than the blues on the front side. But by far the most important thing to know about No Name is that it doesn't accumulate snow nearly as well as the front side does. This may change over time as the ski area notices trends and constructs more snow fences, but as of its first season, many trails are exceptionally thin throughout their entire widths, except up against the Looker's Right tree lines where the highly wind-affected snow mostly collects. Thus, you'll generally want to stick to the skier's left side of the runs as much as possible. The snow also collects much better on the bottom halves of the runs, so the top halves are often closed, even in the peak season. As we go through the individual runs here, keep in mind that all of this info is based on No Name's inaugural season, so patterns may change in the long run. Anyways, despite what the map shows for Prospector, the trail continues all the way to the bottom along this switchback layout you see here. While it's not marked on the map, it's open and groomed, allowing access to the lower halves of Riches through ambush. Prospector as a whole represents the easiest way to descend the No Name pod, and is one of only 2 runs that I'd recommend for true intermediates. The other decent run is Eureka, which is typically groomed. Even when the upper half is open, it's still often better to enter from Prospector in the middle here. Bonanza and Mule Train are both typically groomed as well, but each feature a section that is exceptionally steep and icy, or sometimes bare. Riches and Snowblind get rotational grooming, while Buckhorn and Ambush are both nice mogul runs along their lower halves. As far as tree skiing goes, the Sunset Glades are the most popular in No Name, and while they're decent, they're not anything to write home about. I much prefer the trees between Eureka, Snowblind, and Riches over here, which are typically decent even from the top. White Pine is a narrow traverse that gives access to the North Star Glades. The further you go, the less tracked it typically is. If you really want to, you can do a quick hike at the end to get to the most untouched stashes several days after a storm, but beware that if you hike to it, you'll have to hike out of it. I can't really comment on Tamichi's lift lines with such limited experience, but I doubt they will end up any longer than anything you'll find on the front side. We discussed exiting No Name earlier, but as a brief reminder, Shagnasty is far from the best run, so I wouldn't recommend going in and out of No Name repeatedly throughout the day. Well, that's about all for Monarch Mountain. I know this is a less known, smaller ski area, but I hope this helps at least some of you. As always, please put any questions down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please consider subscribing to help support this stream. Thank you so much for watching. All my love, I'm out.